Hello everyone, welcome back to the lesson number 3 of the grammar lessons with me. Today what we are going to focus upon is another very important concept of nouns and pronouns because they form the subjects and the objects of the sentence. So we learn certain aspects about nouns in a more vivid form. In the previous video, I recorded upon a basic understanding of what is the role of a noun, which is understanding the parts of speech, and the functionality of a noun, which is about making you understand about an entity. But today we are going to look at the other aspects of noun, like number, gender, cases, person, and what are the questions around which the examiners focus upon the questions in the exams. So types of the nouns and countability is the first thing that we are going to look at. The gender and number, the second one. The person in cases, and then pronouns, a quick brief upon pronouns, and the most important pronoun is the relative pronoun. So that's what the agenda is of this video. I hope you will get the value and the learning. Without much ado, let's get started with the video. The first one, which is about understanding nouns. As I said in the previous class, that nouns is about understanding the entities or entities within the subject, within the sentence. But here we understand nouns in a more vivid form, that nouns are some things that we can perceive. We can perceive by our senses, that is, we can see, hear, touch, and taste and smell, and also things that we can think of. The intangible but still perceivable, like truth, lies, laughter. We can observe movement, theft, all these abstract nouns, ideas, concepts, dreams. We can talk about them, but we can't touch them. So basically, as I hinted out in the previous video as well, that the two kinds of existence exist. The concrete one, which we can touch, which were defined by the name, place, animal, thing. And then the second one is about understanding the intangible ones, which is abstract nouns. All feelings, expressions, emotions, and all the things that we are non-physical comes under this realm and therefore forms an abstract noun, which doesn't fit in the definition of name, place, animal, thing. Kinds of noun. I hope a very basic classification of this 4 kinds of noun is given, which is upon understanding the common noun, which denotes a class of objects. Now, why it is called as a common noun is interesting. Common noun is something that have certain commonalities. So, for example, there is a thing called as man. Now, there is something as a man that needs to have a quality, some common qualities. Board, we can't call anything a board. There is a definite quality as a common qualities, as a characteristics or attributes that we call as a board. So, boy, man, room, any geographical area. Not every geographical area can be called a city. There has to be a certain commonality between what is called as a city and what differentiates them from a village. So long as village and so long as metro cities and so on and so forth. So we have classes of objects, things that have a commonality between them are of class of objects is what is called as a common noun. When we give that particular commonality a proper attribution, we call it a particular noun. So the man is named as King George VI. So the King George VI becomes the proper noun. A geographical location like Mumbai, onto a particular longitude, latitude, which stretches and encompasses certain area on a geographical map, is what we call as a city, as Mumbai. So, or any other city for that matter. Proper nouns are therefore proper attributions given to particular objects, places, or things. Collective noun becomes the collection that denotes several person or groupings of things, or a group or a collection, like team, army, swarm, murder of crows, and so on and so forth. So collective nouns, proper words given to the collection, bouquet, furniture, luggage, etc. Abstract nouns, things that we can observe, intangible objects like emotions, feelings, and other things like movement, time for that matter. We can observe, we can measure it, we can quantify it, we can divide it, we can do all the math about it, but we can't touch it. So intangible, perceivable things are abstract nouns, and feelings, emotions also abstract nouns. And then we have material or substance noun, also called as substance noun, uh, denote the substance of which these tangible nouns are made of. For example, water, uh, hydrogen, oxygen, all the periodic elements of the periodic table will become your substances naturally occurring. Then materials like milk, silk, uh, synthetic materials as well, and so on and so forth. So point is that things that we can touch, but we can break them down into the tangible object, tangible components, those will be called as material nouns. Now, all in all, why we are learning this, again, nobody's going to ask you in exams what kind of noun is it, but in some explanations you might find that, this is not used as a common noun, this is used as a proper noun, and therefore behaves in such a manner or such a fashion. So that is the reason why we are doing this, because it's important for you to understand the classification. Again, the agenda is to just brush up these concepts that we have done in schools with bridging them with respect to our competitive exams. Now, interesting aspect of this is this list. Remember, every 5 kind of noun has a general attribute. For example, a common noun is believed to be the countable noun. And please understand that in scientific terms, we can count anything. We have gone subatomic in our life. We have looked at the galactic clusters of galaxies, and we have counted everything. So I'm not saying we cannot count in a scientific manner. I'm saying it in a grammatical manner. In a grammatical manner, when we cannot count anything, we take no plurals to it. For example, we cannot count water, and therefore we will not have a word waters. I mean, waters as a noun will not exist. Water as a verb may exist. The same goes with rain. You can't have the word rains as a noun. You can have it rains as a verb. So the plurals do not exist, and when plurals do not exist, those are restrictively used in singular. Okay, so here is a list of all these common nouns and their collectives which will not have plurals. And you'll be amazed. I think the very IFT 2022 last year, a very simple question was on this concept. So please do not undermine the countability and uncountability is not being tested. It is definitely being tested. So please remember, this is a list to be remembered, and therefore I've just made shared it with you, that jewelry is, you'll have no jewelries, traffics, clothings, furnitures, luggages, sceneries, mails, makeups, monies, cashes, foods, fruits, equipments, that doesn't exist. Okay, so as a noun they don't exist if they are used. For example, wood. Now wood ka woods nahi hota, but woods is used as a noun to denote forest, not the material. So understand, English is a very flexible language, a vast language. Here flexibility exists. So just learn a cruder things upon what are the fluids that jinke nahi hote, the plurals, and they are restrictively therefore taken as singular. Solids like wood, I said, right? Meat will be uncountable, right? Gases like air, smoke, pollution, nitrogen, and any gas for that matter. Particles will not have a plural. Abstractions like advice, beauty, courage, education, energy, fun, grammar, health, help, homework, information, intelligence, knowledge, luck, music, news, peace, progress, slang, sleep, space, time, truth, vocabulary, wealth, work. At least, again, please understand, you would have heard them with an S, but the sense would have been different. They will not be used as a common noun denoting something in a way, having a commonality. They are used in a general sense. So in a generic sense, in a general sense, used as a common noun or their collectives, they will not be treated as plurals. Languages, fields of study, recreational sports, activities used as gerunds like drivings, nahi hoga, fishings, hiking, studyings, swimmings will not exist, right? Natural occurrences like, okay, darkness, electricity, fire, fog, gravity, hail, heat, humidity, lightning, rain, snow, sunshine, thunder, wealth, wind, etc. So please understand that uncountability, non-countable, they will always be restrictively singular. All these things will be singularly used. So it is a beautiful sunshine. I can't say uh, we have beautiful sunshines on so many days on the Mars. No, wrong sentence. Okay, sunshines nahi hoga. So just keep that in mind, okay? And just try to memorize as many things as you can from this list. Moving ahead with the next concept about number, I think gender and number. Now, I hope we understand that there are four genders in the English grammar. We have masculine, which refers to the males, feminine, names of the females, neuter, which names refers to the names of things without life, the inanimate objects, the common, which have denote either a male or a female, usually professions like servant, neighbor, parent, teacher, student, etc. Also, a general note needs to be understood that all material, abstract, collective, and lifeless things are considered neuter gender. However, abstract has a catch, always has. All lower animals and very young children are also assigned neuter gender. So if there is a question that the baby fell and hurt her leg, it's going to be wrong because the her is wrong. It should be its leg and without an apostrophe. The baby fell and hurt its leg. Because young children, though they have biological sexes, but we will not categorize them as the gender. They are considered as neuter gender. So we say its leg. Similarly, lower animal. If we say a mosquito was buzzing in my ear, I killed him. Wrong. I killed it. So these are lower animals in the food chain. Okay. I hope you'll remember that. Let's move ahead. As I said, abstract has a catch. What is the catch with the abstract? This is the catch. Objects that are associated with strength and violence are sometimes in abstractions attributed to masculine. The sun, winter, time, death, etc. Objects associated with beauty and gentleness on the other side are feminine, like the moon, the earth, hope, nature, liberty, charity, peace, etc. So you can see them in a more vivid manner when they are used. They'll be replaced by a feminish pronoun, that is maybe she or her, depending upon what case it is. So objects associated with beauty and gentleness are believed to be feminine. Now I hope number everyone knows, so just keep this list in mind. Two things from this list also I just want to add. Any vehicles are taken to be females because they bear men, and also country. Majority of the countries are believed to be motherland and therefore treated female. Though there is no hard fast rule, I'm not prescribing it. I'm saying that competitive point of view, from an examination point of view, most general usage of these two words is in the feminine gender rather than the masculine gender. So just keep that in mind. I hope number everybody knows. Singular denotes one and plural denotes more than one. And we do many things to make a noun to plural. The S, ES, IES, EVS, EN, REN, etc. What happens more interestingly, why this concept is used, is with compounded nouns. What are compounded nouns? Compounded nouns are when they're not any special kind of noun, they are any word when you add and treat it as an entity. A collective set of more than one words, you put a hyphen and you add. For example, a very common one of this is son-in-law. Right. Now, when I make a plural for son-in-law, what it should be? Should it be sons-in-law or should it be son-in-laws? I think that is where it brings us to a very thoughtful point. I mean, if you go by speaking sense, laws makes more sense, but unfortunately, son-in-laws doesn't exist. Sons-in-law is the correct answer. Now, what's the logic behind it? For example, I can take another example like looker on, a compounded word. So should I have lookers on, or should I have looker ons? So that's where, because when we say fountain pen as a compounded noun and we make a plural, I'm sure that you will not say fountain's pen, you will say fountain pens. But here looker ons becomes incorrect. Why? Let's understand it by the list that I've just given. So in a few compounded nouns, what you should keep in mind is that uh, whatever is the main entity, I mean, look at this one, son-in-law, the main noun is son, not in-law. In-law is acting like an attribution, kind of an adjective. That what kind of son? The son-in-law. So what kind of commander? The commander-in-chief. This is kind of given, though it's a noun, this is a compounded noun, but the word is acting like an adjective. So I will not say chiefs, I will rather say commanders-in-chief. So we'll have a plural at commanders-in-chief. We'll have a plural in sons-in-law. We'll have a plural in passers-by, because by is just like acting like a preposition here. Looker on will act like a preposition here. So main noun is the, similarly the list goes here. Fountain pen, the main noun is pen. Fountain acts like an adjective. What kind of pen? Boyfriend, the main noun is friend. What kind is the boy? So boy acts like an adjective. Maid servant, what is the main noun? The noun is the servant. Maid is just an attribution, so it acts like an adjective. So we'll have, so that's what the logic is. So whenever you're given some new word or they have compounded a word, just keep in mind what is the main entity of it. That needs to be plural. Okay, main identity needs to be plural. So just keep that in mind. Then with respect to the number, I've often seen exams asking foreign plurals from words from the foreign plural, like alumnus. So if I say something like, he is the alumni of my college, it's wrong. So he is a singular and therefore he should be alumnus of my college. Similarly, criteria and criterion. So criteria is a plural, while criterion is the singular. So just keep certain foreign plurals as a list. You can just Google out what are the some very commonly used foreign plurals that you should keep in mind. I have created a list like analysis, formulas, axis, okay, datum, a very new word, okay, stadia, so premia. I mean, certain things that I just found out. You can Google out and look for more. And then there are certain nouns which behave like both, which can act like singular and plural alike. So especially words like sheep, deer, swine, fish, salmon, hare, acts like they have no s, they have singulars. However, there is a catch. Whenever these nouns are used in a countable sense, they can have the word s. Okay, s can be attached. I'll give an example. For example, if he say, she has blonde hair, this is perfect. But if I say he has 4 gray hair, now this is correct, but even if you say hairs, it is not wrong, and hairs is more preferable because now you're counting it. Okay, so if it's using in a countable sense, there is a number, you're using it as a countable sense, all these words may have a plurals, they may have a s behind them. So fishes, es, and so on and so forth, right? So s doesn't s restrictively, but can be fishes, for example, is es, and so on and so forth. So just keep that in mind. I hope that whenever you encounter a question, come to it. The next thing about the nouns that you must definitely know is about person. I've created a lot of questions, a lot of exercise in a person, because in person we miss up on a simple facts. We do not use them conventionally, and you've even in internet space we hardly use these rules, so they form a very important topic for competitive exams. So just keep this in mind. In a following rules must be understood. In English there are three person. The first person is always the person who is speaking, that is I and we. The second person is always the person who's spoken to, which is you, both in singular as well as in plural. And the third person is always the person who's spoken about and who's spoken for. For example, he, she, it, they, and so on and so forth. However, what is the rule? How should they be arranged if there are more than three persons in a narrative? We should say in a general narrative, in general sense, when there is no guilt or there is no mistake to be pointed out, the order should be 2 3 1 and not 1 3 1 2 3. For example, see, look at this sentence. It is you, he, and I are old school guys. So it's about 2 3 1 that we need to keep in mind as a number. So here we have you as the 2, he as 3, and I as 1. So it's 2 3 1. When 2 3 1, anyone is missing. For example, you and I. So the 3 is missing. So it should be 2 and 1 and not I and you. Similarly, you and Anna has 2 3 1 is missing. So 2 and 3. So you and Anna, not Anna and you. We're at your best. So just keep this in mind. Again, very, very good. 99% of people do not know this rule, or even if they do, they will not be applying it. So please keep in mind. However, the order changes when a fault needs to be acknowledged. Okay, a fault needs to be acknowledged, then the order goes 1 2 3. Okay, so for example, when I say I, he, and you. Okay, this is wrong. I think it should be I, you, and he. Are it wrong? So 1 2 and 3. I and you, 1 and 2. Okay, we, you, and he. I've created a typo, sorry for that. So 1 2 and 3 were not listening. So whenever you're pointing out a mistake, you're wrong, you're mistaken, then the order is 1 2 3. So a quick way to remember this is 2 3 1 for the normal order, for usual, and then 1 2 3 only for mistakes or guilt. So when you're guilty. Okay, in contemporary English, these rules are hardly observed, but they form a very important topic for our competitive exams. Next one, a case. Again, in English language, there are 6 cases. We have cases of nominative, genitive, accusative, dative, vocative, and case in apposition. However, by and large, in our competitive exams, the first 3 are what they will primarily target. The subjective and the objective case is something that is definitely very, very interesting. We know it, but in the verbal communication, it's often missed. So please pay special attention to the cases that are used in exams. So let me just give this in a very simple one. We have always the subjects and the objects. So try and remember that subjects are the people who do an action. So they are the doer, they are the agents. Okay, while objects are always the people who receive the action. This is something that we have done in our building blocks. So if you have not watched that video, go back, watch it. I have given a detailed instruction on what is a subject, how many objects are there, what is a complete subject, what complete predicate, all these basic building blocks: subject, object, predicate, indirect object, direct object, dependent clause, independent clause, phrase, what's the difference between phrase and clause. I've covered in my first video, which was named as building blocks. So please watch it for the elaborative definitions of it. But these are the objects. Now, when a subject does something, it acts like a subject. When a doer does something, and when a pronoun is indicative of how is the subject or the object being treated. And therefore, we have cases. Cases basically define the verb, and the cases basically show the relation of a noun in another word, that how is it related. So is it acting like a subject? Is it acting like a verb? For example, we say I called him. We will never say me called he. Why? Because obviously I is the subjective case of the word I and me. Okay, while he is also the subject. So we will definitely put subjects in the subject form and we will use objective form of him. So I have given a table in the pronouns. I'm just referring to it. We'll come back as a list. You should just try to remember this table. I've just covered this up for you. So for example, I becomes me. Okay, we becomes us. You is the most horrible one. As a second person, you remains you every time. So just keep you as a very problematic guy. Then he becomes obviously him, she becomes her, it remains it, they becomes them as in plural. So just remember this list. Genitive and possessive cases are very simple, so I'll come back to them. But if you just remember this list, I becomes me, he becomes us. I mean, you know it, but I'm just saying in case if you know, I have covered this in the video. So just pause it, take a screenshot, just remember them, or do whatever you feel like. Okay, so I hope this is what is the thing that when a noun or a pronoun acts like a subject of the verb, it behaves in a nominative case. When a noun or a pronoun is used as an object of the verb, that is receiver, it turns out to be an accusative case. So I hope there is a very common error that people make. For example, I am older than him. That's a very verbal error. In verbal, that's a very written error. In verbatically, this is perfectly fine because I behaves like the subject and him behaves like an object. So it makes sense when you talk to it verbally, but grammatically, this is wrong. I mean, formal writing, it will be considered a wrong thing. Why? Because you are actually comparing. So I am older than he is, should be the correct phrase. Even if you are not writing is or he is, it automatically makes sense. So we should rather write I am older than he, which sounds funny, I know, but believe me, this is the correct grammatical usage of it. And again, a very, very frequently asked concept. It will be slightly an error because it will sound correct, and not everything that sounds correct is true in terms of our grammar in grammatical exams. So just keep that in mind. I think I've created an exercise of some 20 questions or 15 plus questions. I'm sure that we will practice this in the forthcoming slides. So just hold on to it. I'll give you another example. For example, if we say we or us girls were not frightened by the movie. So I'm sure that it will be very simple. It will be we girls because the girls are the subject who were not frightened, right, by the movie. But if the sentence was altered, let's say the movie did not frighten we girls or us girls. Now the movie becomes the subject, and then we are receiving the fright of the movie, and therefore we should go by us girls now. Okay, so if I give you a sentence, the boss is calling you and I or me to his room, to his office. It should be because the boss is the subject here, and therefore you is also the objective case. What happens is you is often confused with the subject. So no, because you never changes. You remains the same, is in subject as well as in object. So it will be me is the correct answer to this. So I hope you remember this concept because this is very, very crucial. Understand it rather than just mug it up. And whenever you compare, please compare with the subject thing. For example, if you say, can you sing as well as they or them? Them sounds better but is wrong. they will be the correct one, because now you're comparing the subject. See, you sing is the clause because you is the subject, singing is the verb. So can you sing as well as is the comparative, as they sing or they do. This sing or do is not necessarily needs to be explicitly stated. It's obviously understood. So even if it is not there, we will put they in competitive exams, not them. While talking, even if you've put them, it's okay, it's fine. Nobody's going to check you. So can you sing as well as they do? So just keep that in mind. Ring this in your mind that okay, as they do, there has to be a verb followed by it. So the verb subject needs to do the verb. So therefore, it has to be a subject. So I hope you'll keep that in mind. Let's do with the possessives. What are possessives? Possessives are things showing the possession. So genitive is very simple. It just shows that, for example, let's consider the example, Samantha broke Anna's heels. So the Anna is addressing as apostrophe Anna's heels. So whose possessions, whose heels were they? Anna's heels, and therefore we possess the apostrophe. Now, I think the most common conflicting is about its and its. So this rule is not followed for its, because apostrophe its becomes it is. It's a contraction of it is. So this is a contraction of it is. So just keep that in mind, that possessives, its pe nahi lagta. Its without an apostrophe shows the possession. Okay, so I hope that you'll understand. So that's all from the cases. We'll do an exercise. I think that will elaborate you more towards it. Now, pronouns, words that are used instead of nouns, we use them all the time, so we are very familiar with the pronouns. There are 8 kinds. Nobody's again going to ask you what is the classification of them. I'm just telling you so that you should know when is reflexive, what is emphatic. Personal pronouns, I, we, they, you, he, she, most, which replaces persons. Reflexive, which reflect back to the subject. Emphatic, which emphasizes. Now what's the difference? They look all the same, but there is the usage which differentiates them. For example, I hurt myself. So I hurt I, or I hurt me, so therefore you're reflecting back. But the moment you say I will do it, it's automatically understood that you will do it, but then you emphasize I will do it myself. So then you're using myself as an emphatic one. Again, a clear cases of usage. So just be just understand them clearly. Demonstrative, used as this, that, these, those. Indefinite, when there is no definite number. One, anyone, anything, anybody, somebody. Distributive, each, either of, neither of. Reciprocal, which reciprocates one another, each other, one another, etc. Relative is the most commonly used in exams, like who, whose, whom, which, and that. Okay, so these are the relative pronoun, and relative pronouns becomes the very interesting aspect of our competitive exams. So let's examine relative pronouns. Why are they so special and why they are very frequently asked? Relative pronouns, let's examine the following sentence. I do not know the man, and the man was shouting loudly. Now, if I combine these two sentences into one, the sentence becomes I do not know the man who was shouting loudly. Now, what happens to this who definitely replaced the man, so it acts like a pronoun, but it also acted like a conjunction as it joined the two sentences together. Remember, what are conjunctions? Conjunctions were the words that join two words or two phrases or two clauses or even two sentences. So here in this sentence, who also acts like a pronoun and also adds another phrase or another clause, and therefore any word, any particular subject, any particular pronoun that acts like this, which helps you relate to a noun and which also adds another phrase or another clause or another sentence, is what is called as a relative pronoun. So it also acts like a conjunction. So relative pronouns are very interesting because they will always relate. Okay, and what do they relate to is what is called as an antecedent. So why is relative pronoun so important? Because relative pronouns itself have subjects, and whatever subject they will refer to will have its own antecedent, and because of the antecedent, if antecedent is singular, we will have to use a singular verb. If it refers to a plural, we'll have to use a plural verb. So we'll do this, elaborate upon more upon this in subject verb agreement, where I will make sure that the relative pronoun is understood. But for this, I think you should look at this example which I've given here. Let's look at this example. The doctor whom I met. In this case, the doctor is the object of the sentence. I mean, you might be wondering how. Please understand, he receives the meat, he doesn't do the meat. So I am the doer, so I am the subject, and therefore doctor becomes the object, and therefore the relative pronoun who's relating to it, the doctor whom I met, so whom has to change to the objective case. Okay, however, look at this one. The doctor here acts like a subject because the doctor met me, so therefore obviously I am the object, so I should be converted to its objective case, me. But what is more interesting is the relative pronoun who will now replace the doctor, and therefore who has to be in the subjective case. Okay, so very interesting and very important concept. Just keep that in mind, that hardly when we talk, for example, in this case also, when we talk in our conversations, we can say the doctor who I met yesterday. I mean, that's fine with respect to the vocal English, but the vocational English. But when it comes to the formal written English, this will become wrong, because whom will now then denote the subjective case, which is therefore wrong. In this case, I can say the whom. So just keep in mind that relative pronouns itself has cases, therefore the relative pronoun is very interesting. So in nominative case, or the whom, it should be used in accusative, which is the objective case, and this is the subjective case. Just fancier words, nominative and accusative. Okay, then also for things we use what, and for things in animals also we use which and what, and for person who use who and whom. We cannot swap this. Also, another very interesting concept which is called as the restrictive and non-restrictive usage of the relative pronoun. So let me just quickly write a sentence to you so that you understand it. For example, if I say, my brother who is a sound engineer has returned from Los Angeles, so LA, and then I am just literally copying the sentence, but this time I'm just going to add 2 commas and ask you, is there any difference between the 2 sentences? Please do not say that yes, there is a pause and then there is a comma. I am asking, is there a semantic difference? Is there a meaningful difference between them? Does the meaning change or meaning remains the same? You can pause the video and think for a while. Is there any meaningful difference? Okay, if you're not able to find out, if you're just thinking upon that, if whether it is emphasis that I'm creating, the sound engineer brother has returned from LA, etc., etc., of all these things, no, it's not the case. There is a meaningful difference. I'll give you a hint. A hint is that one sentence actually implies I have only one brother, and one sentence implies I have more than one brother. If you can guess which is which, you can again pause the video and think about which is referring to which. So let's say this is the A and this is the B. Which is which? Okay, now let's spill the beans. I think this sentence has many brothers, and therefore you are trying to tell me that the brother who's a sound engineer has returned from LA. So because I have many brother, the one who is actually a sound engineer has actually returned from LA. However, in this case, I have only one brother. For whom I'm giving you two pieces of information. I'm just telling you that number one information is that he is a sound engineer, and number two is that he is the one who has returned from LA. And therefore, I have to use the separate it from separate commas. I have to separate this information from commas because this is the same brother of whom I'm giving you multiple information, and therefore that information has to be separated from commas. So the first information is that he's a sound engineer, and the second same information is that he is returned from LA. I'm sure while encountering your analytical reasoning questions, you might have, when you're solving puzzles, you might have encountered to this dilemma. If you have, I think this is the dilemma solved today. For example, if I give you a question and say that P, who sits third left to B, who wears the pink shirt. In this case, if I ask you who wears the pink shirt, what should be your answer? So if you say P wears the pink shirt, then you're wrong. It's actually B, because the relative pronoun who refers to B. So it's B who wears the who wears the pink shirt. But if I have the same sentence with a comma placed into it, if I say P, who sits third to the left of B, comma, who wears the blue shirt, now who wears the blue shirt is not B. Now P is wearing the blue shirt. How is this happening? Because of the comma. I'm sure that you know it, but who now doesn't refer to this one, because you're separating the clause. This is two information about P. P is the one who's sitting third to the left, and P is also the one who is wearing the pink shirt. So this is also the importance of the relative pronoun. This particular concept is called as restrictive and non-restrictive usage of it. Here I have restrictively used the pronoun to immediately refer to the immediate antecedent before it. This is the antecedent, the relative antecedent. Who is it relating to? And here the relative antecedent changes when I put comma. So that is what I was saying. When it refers to a singular verb, it will go with a singular. When it refers to a plural noun, it goes to a plural verb. So that more on this later. Why I've told you this restrictive and non-restrictive cases, because there is a confusion always with that versus which, and this is very commonly asked concept in your mocks and in your exams. So just keep that in mind. That is used in a non-comma sentence. I'm using the word only, or you can say restrictively used. In a non-comma sentence. So I'm just boiling it down to comma and non-comma sentence, right? I mean, I should technically say the restrictive and the non-restrictive usage of it, but I know that doesn't sound good because you'll have to apply so much of pressure onto your mind that which was which. So just remember, whenever we will separate, whenever we will use it non-restrictively, we'll separate it from the comma. So that is what. So which is used, is preferably used with comma sentence. Okay, so I have a question. For example, look at the question number 3. George's new car dash is less than a month old, comma, has already started to giving trouble. So that versus which. So if you understood this rule, I'm sure you can see the commas and we will put which here, because that here will be wrong. Okay, because that is only used in a non-restrictive, while which can be used in a non-comma also. But then let's not get confused, because then there is an American usage and there is a British usage. So I'm just trying to explain you this British usage, which says which can be used for both, but it is preferred to be used with a comma one. It is uh, uh, it can be also used, so this is also can be used for a non-comma. However, that cannot be used with a comma sentence. Okay, so Britishers follow this. They say this. Americans have separated the rule and said, okay, if we are using that for a non-comma, we should use which for a comma. So they did not interfere with this rule. But again, as we are preferring the UK standards of the formal written English, therefore we can go with this rule as well. So in certain cases, you can see which also being placed in a non-comma sentence, but that can never be placed in a comma sentence. In both the languages, US as well as UK, it is considered a wrong syntax. So just keep that in mind. And I think that ends the theoretical session today. I think that is if you find it huge to remember, I think just watch the video in separate things. I hope you've solved the questions. You can just pause this video. Very interesting 5 questions I've just picked up, which will just brush up the concept. So if you have watched the video again and then you feeling now you know, this is where you can pick it up. So I'm just discussing the answers. Tony and I are flying because both of us are subjects. I met my friend who had just written. So my friend is the subject. So I'll say I met my friend, one clause, and then my friend returned from holiday abroad. Okay, third we have already done. I met a man today. A most common problem is whom. Whom is wrong. Please remember, this is who was on the continent. I had just heard is just another clause which is a dependent one. So we will add the sentence in this manner. I met a man today. So these are 3 sentences. Look at this way. I met a man today. Full stop. The man was on the continent. I had just heard. Okay, so this sentence, when you join a man, the man, I think that is what you can't join the man I had just heard. So this is what is called as transposing sentences. This is just transposition happened. So I just transposed, I just shifted the place and I separated it by comma, which doesn't make more of a help to you, because you have to understand that the subject is what? The man, and the man was on the continent. So who is replacing the relative subject, the man, who's acting like a subject. I had just heard is I had just heard. It's a separate clause in itself. It's a dependent, it's an independent, it's a dependent clause which depends upon the man was on the continent. Okay, 5th is also a very terrific question. Majority of the people mark she because they are wrong. If you just pause the video and identify what is the subject of this sentence, what is the action being happening and who's the subject, I think you get the answers. The subject of the sentence is he. He now began to regard her with something. Who had been the apple of his eye. So what I've done, again, transpose the sentence to make it difficult. And again, we have a very childish mindset that whatever comes first is the subject. So she is the subject because it looks cute. She who had been the apple of the eye. It makes perfect sense. It sounds good. And therefore should be answer no. Subject is important, so put the subjects. He now began to regard her, so I should rather say her. It sounds absurd, but believe me, that's the correct answer. He now began to regard her who had been her who had been the apple of his eye, he now began to regard with something. That's the correct answer for it. So even if you have got the fifth one wrong, it's okay. The learning from this is that whatever sounds good is not necessarily the correct answers. Okay, now I hope you've solved this in the previously. So I'm just quickly discussing the answers. We scored, so again comparison, so we scored as well as many runs as they did. Ankur and I, because we both were present, so these Ankur and I are the subjects of the story. Can you sing? Again comparison. Can you sing as well as they do? Acha. Let you, so who let? So you let, you and me. Okay, always remember, in terms of let and between, you're always treated as an object. This is a more preferred objective way. Wait for Preeti and me. Why? Because who's the subject? You wait for Preeti. You is not declared, but you wait for Preeti and me. So Preeti and I both are the objects, and therefore I have to use Preeti ka, using the name, but it's an object of the wait. Who has to receive the wait? You receive the weight of who as an object? Preeti and me. You know that. So again comparison. You know that as well as I do. I know it sounds absurd, but please don't go by the sound. It's what me is wrong. It was I that gave you the alarm. Between you and me, I do not believe him. So me. We are not so rich as, again comparison. So we are not rich, subject, as they are. R is not written, but again that's what it makes. Paritosh is as old as I am. Again the three members, because there are three, so undecided, so whomever. The city itself. None so blind, again comparison, none so blind as they are. Whom can I trust if not him? Because I can trust him. That should be the sentence. He is the object. So whom can I trust? I can trust him. The director who won the Oscar. So because the director is the subject, he is winning the Oscar. So he studied in UCLA. So who? Who did the job? It could have been them. Passive voice. The women each gave her approval. It was her. The women, the gender, and then each her. Both of you work hard, but you work harder than he does. Oh, sorry, she does. Not her, because again, comparison. You work hard, you as a subject. Did you like movies? It's wonderful. Again, did you like the movie? It is wonderful, right? It's wonderful will become a possession. So it is wonderful. Someone has to do the work and he has to do it well, because he's the subject who's going to do it. Okay, I'm sorry. Someone and they. I thought this is a objective question. In a match, no one realized their time was up. No gender. Many are. This is a subject verb agreement question, so we'll elaborate upon this more. So don't get confused. Just watch for my lesson 4, I believe. The 5, 4 or 5. I don't remember the sequence, but it will be in the subject verb agreement that many are is treated as singular. So many a girl wishes, she and not they. Many is treated as more than one, but many are is a cluster, therefore a singular. The doctor whom you recommended, because you recommended, so you is the subject, you recommended the verb, and therefore the object is the doctor whom you recommended. He is the man we were discussing, so we were discussing him, right? So he was the man whom we were discussing. We were the subject, so we were discussing him last week. Saif will talk about Karina with whomever. No, whoever, because whoever asks him. Okay, so whoever asks him. Okay, let's move to this one. Okay, now this was very interesting question. The questions on understanding the grammatically correct question. This is a that question, and what so how should we do these kind of questions? I think you should first scan them vertically, not horizontally, vertically. So surprisingly given the recent labor problems, okay, surprisingly given the recent problems in the factory, तो यहाँ तक भी सब सेम है. The factory manager, the fanny pack, okay, has enjoyed considerable. इधर तक सब सेम था. Okay, support from तक सब सेम है. Okay, now so itna just was a complete waste. This is that, and IFT particularly, that is peculiarly famous for. Now the question is they, them, he, those, that. Okay, so who were previously challenged, who had previously challenged. So the factory manager has enjoyed considerable support from them who had previously challenged his leadership, from those who had previously challenged his leadership, from they to nahi hoga because subject hai ye, from them who had previously challenged his. So he has enjoyed, he is the subject, surprisingly the recent labor problems in the factory manager is the subject. So he is enjoying considerable support from those who had previously challenged, because we do not know from who had previously challenged his leadership. So he to bilkul hi nahi hoga, singular hai. So this is gone. From that bhi nahi hoga. From those who had previously challenged his leadership, or from them who had previously challenged his leadership. So they had previously challenged his leadership, and then he's enjoying considerable support from those. Okay, he is also demonstrating. Okay, so those who had previously challenged his leadership. 12, second, an amazing question. Again, this is basically a subject verb agreement question. So how nouns are misused, or how are nouns act differently. So for example, the jury was divided in opinion, but finally it returned. So jury singular and singular, jury plural and plural, half sentence singular, half sentence plural is wrong. Jury was divided singular, but they returned plural, again half sentence singular, half plural. Jury were divided in opinion, but finally they returned plural. Now this is again something we will elaborate more on subject verb agreement. This is a collective noun question. Okay, collective noun when used in a unity will define it as the singular, but when they are used to refer to the members, for example, we can't say the jury was drinking water. It sounds absurd. We are very clever. When we speak, we'll say jury members were drinking water. So, but when we write officially, if we say jury were drinking water, it perfectly means the members were drinking water, and therefore in this case it's divided, and divided cannot be singular. Therefore divided, and they is establishing the plural, and therefore the fourth sentence will be the right answer. Okay, let's look at this. In this sentence, certainly the collective nouns are used incorrectly. I have to identify the correct sentence. So, whose cattles are these? Cattles are never used in plurals. Okay, cattle is always used in a singular. Sceneries, as I said, this is wrong. No, news is good. This is perfect. So, after 2022 question, I said, so either he loves your son or mine. Okay, your son is a possession. So, or mine. Then this is colony of mouses. I think mice. He gave me 10 5 rupees note. 10 5 rupee note. These 5 children are her offsprings. Springs. Okay, there are no gentry. Gentry is treated as a collective and therefore singular. So this is wrong. So this should be C. So IFT asking questions on countability, uncountability, and the usage of the nouns. So please do learn the list. Before we end, quick recap of what we learned today. Nouns are sort of entities that you can perceive. There are 5 types: common, proper, material, substance, abstract, and collective. Countable nouns can be in the plural verbs. Uncountable nouns are restrictively singular. Example, water is kept here, not are. Our luggage is missing, not are. Gender of the pronouns provides replacement information about entities which are correct pronouns like he, she, it. Just remember, number of nouns, singular, plural, are confusing in certain foreign plurals like criterion and criteria. Person rules provide information about who's the speaker and the listener. So the 2, 3, 1 and the 1, 2, 3 rules must be applied. 1, 2, 3 for guilty or mistake, and 2, 3, 1 for a normal chance. Cases are the words that tell the manner of the entities. The subject, the object, or the possessive case are the most important one. Pronouns are the replacement word. They are of 8 type. The relative pronoun is the most frequently asked concept in our aptitude exams. So I hope this lecture helped you understand nouns in their entirety. Next lecture we will deal with adjectives and adverbs. Though adjectives and adverbs have not been asked by any competitive exams specifically, I have just given up a preemptive questions from my side. They have been an integral part of GMAT. So there might be questions around which any exam can pick up. So just be prepared, but rest assured there will be no very difficult questions that will be framed, because if they'll ask it itself is a very greater concept, and adjectives and adverbs are often confused with themselves. So they will not give you a very deeper question on the concept. I've prepared a very lighter sheet, but you should know all the types of adjectives, what is their usage, and that is what we're going to discuss in the next class. So order of usage as well, which is where I'm preemptive that there might be a question in a couple of years that can be asked from it. So that's all from my side today. Thank you so much for watching. See you in the next video.